I'm Justin Brady, live in studio, Drucker Forum TV, and today we're joined by Falco Weidemeyer, the EY Global Head of Turnaround and Restructuring.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
Pleasure.
You were in some panels at the Global Peter Drucker Forum. Is it yesterday?
Yesterday.
Yeah. Are you doing any today?
No, I'm not doing any today. Yesterday we did the one about making the most of failure.
Yeah. Oh, you were in that one.
Which I think had a pretty good feedback overall.
Now, was that the one? Was that the panel with, I think Dan Pink was on that one?
Yes.
Amy Edmondson was on that one?
Yes.
I've heard a lot of good feedback on that. Failure and, what was the other topic? Failure and regret, obviously, because Dan Pink. He was in here yesterday, Dan was. So, a lot of good people that we keep bringing to you here on Drucker Forum TV. So, I kind of expected, I was reading through all of your LinkedIn and doing my research, and I kind of expected a lot of data and analytics and restructuring and financial numbers and tactical stuff. I saw some of that, but one of the things I saw a lot, you hitting on quite a bit, was purpose, which kind of surprising, but it made a lot of sense. So looking through your LinkedIn, I expected all that stuff, but you repeatedly touch on purpose. So how much does defining and aligning around a purpose actually matter? Like, why are you so passionate about that?
I mean, first of all, let's not forget that our trade is a quantitative trade and will remain a quantitative trade. So you need a robust business plan, you need to understand where the company stands, and all of these things are necessary. But they are not sufficient in order to successfully turn around a company. In fact, you need a clear strategic plan, you need a sustainable concept for the future, and thus you need a purpose, along which you then adapt cost structures and asset structures and financing structures for that matter. And it would be wrong to do it the other way around, because you could end up, metaphorically speaking, putting gas into a car that continues to go in the wrong direction.
Right. No, that's a really, it's very hard. This topic, I feel, I don't know if you agree with me, I feel like this topic is really hard to communicate to leadership on why it's so important, because they almost see it as touchy-feely, and it's like one of those things, okay, purpose, great, okay, Falco, we get it, purpose is, and it's almost something they shove down the road. We'll get to that later. So why is that? Why do a lot of companies really struggle with defining what that purpose is? Is it because they don't see the value? What's the problem?
No, I think it's probably a definition problem or a definition challenge. If you limit the purpose discussion to, how shall I say, an asset for your employer value proposition, that is quite narrow actually. Yeah? If you interpret purpose as something that results from your overall strategic orientation and that ultimately helps you, yes, to attract and retain talent, but also to finance and to move overall in the right direction, it becomes a lot more relevant. So I think it's a little bit of a definition problem, and we often get confronted with these challenges also because some of the situations that we deal with are quite, shall I say, existential, yeah? Or at least there's a lot of pressure, and there is this immediate reflex to concentrate on financing and the cost base, which is absolutely necessary, but you cannot possibly contempt yourself with that.
Yeah, I see that it aligns all stakeholders, because I feel like leadership tends to forget just how many stakeholders exist and that you rely on for business success. So like investors, customers, but vendors too. And from your writing, it seems like when you really define that purpose accurately and you do it well, you're aligning all those vendors, all those stakeholders, all that talent into the same mission. Is that a good summary?
Yes, it's a good summary if it all works. As so often, it sounds a little easier than it is in practice. But yes, I agree with you. And let us be clear: this is not like a complementary accessoire. It is a necessary component of your overall turnaround concept.
Yeah. No, I agree. It is 100% necessary, because I do communications work. That's my actual day job, right? Yeah. I get to do this for fun, but I do communications work, and it's always the people who can communicate effectively and move forward together. They know their purpose, they know that vision, they know that mission, they have it very well. The people who are confused and can't get things done, they don't know it, they don't understand, and it's incredible how it all comes out of that. So like to resolve this, I see a lot of leaders will do these really broad, very safe purpose statements. For it to be successful, though, and that doesn't seem to work when it's way too broad. So for it to be successful, do there need to be some core elements that define a good purpose?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with broad statements to start with, but you obviously need to translate that into a message that every employee and every stakeholder can understand, also in the sense of how they can contribute to that. And that may force you to break it down a lot, and also exit this fear of, how shall I say, transformational language. Yeah, that is sometimes very true, but also very difficult to digest, and enter into a sphere of very concrete recommendations and actions and asks that you then formulate on a much more detailed level.
Yeah, so I was reading through some of your LinkedIn posts, and there's something that really caught my eye. You touched on it briefly, but I was hoping you could go into more detail. Now, if you don't have the detail with you, that's totally fine. But you surveyed 1,000 CEOs and mentioned on LinkedIn their responses show a worrying degree of potential complacency about performance, but then we don't really break out that too much. Can you go broadly into detail on what that is? Because I want to know more about what this complacency is.
Yeah, I mean, if we look back over the last 3-4 years of continued disruption, we have seen surprising resilience in companies, in societies, and other constructs, and which is good news per se. But it can also be misleading a little bit, because if you look at the transformative agenda that lies ahead, this transformative agenda needs to be financed. Yeah? And the financing environment has become more challenging. It's not, I mean, let's be realistic, it's not a drama. I mean, interest rates are coming back to more normal levels after a period of very low interest rates, but still they have risen very sharply in a short period of time, and availability of capital has also become more challenging and certainly more costly. So internal financing has become yet again very, very important, and performance has become very important, not in the sense of performance as a project you basically clean up and then you move on. No, performance as a basis, financial basis for the financing of the necessary transformation. So that is, I think, very important to keep that in mind in the period going forward. You need this focus on performance in order to finance your transformation smartly.
Gosh, okay. So now it's not just finance though, right? You mentioned performance. Is there an element to like leaders not keeping their eye on the ball right now? They're kind of, I mean, we came through the pandemic, we came through supply chain disruption, we've come through all this stuff. Are people kind of like, I worked really hard the last 2 years and I just got pushed back? Has that kind of created some complacency? Is that a factor, or are we kind of over that?
That's at least not what I observe.
Yeah.
And that's at least not what I observe. What I do observe is that the homework sheet is overwhelmingly full.
Oh.
Yeah, and that is something that for which I have a lot of understanding. So you need to prioritize, because there are many things that were on this homework sheet already before all the crises that have hit us in the last 3-4 years, and that are still on this agenda. And then other aspects have come on top of that. So you need to focus. And you mentioned something that's also quite interesting in my opinion. You spoke about leaders, and I think this is something that is very much needed in this period. This focus on leadership, providing direction, holding people together, and creating a sense of belonging, also connectivity.
That's a good point.
Management is also necessary, but management wouldn't be sufficient in that period.
Yeah.
You need to provide direction in this disrupted market context.
Yeah, I hear from leaders sometimes, and they're like, man, Justin, if only we could deal with just the work stuff. Like, why do people bring their personal stuff to work? And I'm like, well, you can complain about it all you want. You can complain for a decade, but people are still going to bring their personal stuff to work. People are still going to work harder if they have that sense of belonging. People are still going to work together as a unit if they have that sense of purpose, right? So you can't deny people's humanity at work. And that's what I see the pattern in your work is, you have to focus on people as a human. Otherwise, you can't turn around a company. It's never going to happen in a million years. We have Hubert Joly on, CEO of Best Buy, the turnaround guy there. And he has some similar things that he says about this that you do, that purpose matters so much. So it's really cool to see that consistency. Now, as you know a lot about disruption, that's one of your passions as well. So as disruption becomes, like a weekly experience now, it seems like it's a weekly experience. How do leaders avoid this I just call it the tactical temptation. How do they avoid responding and getting distracted by shiny objects?
Not necessarily by shiny objects, I would say, but it is a normal reaction to become defensive at first and tactical, and kind of try to solve the situation at hand as it presents itself. I think that is totally normal, and that has also proven to be quite necessary, especially during COVID, for example. Many ad hoc reactions were necessary. And then again, the whole market context and societal context and geopolitical or geoeconomical context is maybe quite worrying and blurry at the same time. So it's not so easy to figure out kind of what future could be the one that you base your plans on. But you don't actually need to figure out all the details. If you figure out the patterns and the directions, you can already start moving your company along these directions. And I think that is necessary. So stepping out of this circle or spiral of tactical reactions that at a certain point in time just make everybody nervous, stepping out of that a little bit and providing new direction along the vectors that you can detect. You don't need to know, for example, where exactly the interest rate will settle to understand that financing and refinancing will be more challenging. I mean, this is a simple example, but
that's a good example.
It's a simple example, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. So it's keep your eyes on the ball. Strategy matters. Strategy still matters. But I like how you said ad hoc tactical, like reactive things, defensive plays. Those are still fine as long as those don't take your eye off the overall strategy. So I'm assuming if you're having a lot of tactical response, a lot of defensive stuff, maybe there becomes a point where it's time to relook at the strategy.
Yeah, let's go back to the people aspect probably again. If you overwhelm your teams with tactical reactions all the time without providing direction, that's a problem. Yeah, that's a problem. And you cannot, in our trade, you cannot restructure against the people. You have to restructure with them. Yeah. So even if there are some, and very often, very, very hard truths, you still need to take people along. And just playing tactical doesn't suffice.
So are you sticking around for the forum at all?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I wanted to, maybe we can get something. I wanted to talk about AI. So you mentioned organizations thinking they can easily hire up or behaving foolishly these days. But then you also simultaneously caution they should adopt robotic process automation. So just last 30 seconds, is AI replacing jobs something we desperately kind of need? Don't we kind of need AI to help us on the human front?
30 seconds is a challenge, but I'll try it. I'll try it. AI, like other technical revolutions in industrial history, will ultimately create more employment.
That's what I think.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But we will go through an efficiency phase first, where it replaces certain amounts of work and can create transformation losers, quote unquote, in the short term. While then we move into another phase where AI creates new potential and also new jobs.
So adopt quickly.
So you have to adopt quickly, and you must not expect this compensatory effect short term.
Perfect. Falco Weidemeyer, EY Global Head of Turnaround and Restructuring. Awesome to have you here. Thank you so much for joining on Drucker Forum TV.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
Enjoy the day.